Hey climbers, Brent here. Are you ready to write your best songs ever? Are you ready to take that next step in your songwriting journey? Well, I want to help you with that. Listening to the C.L.I.M.B podcast is a great way to get started on your songwriting journey and to learn the basics about the art, the craft, and the business of songwriting. But eventually, you're probably going to need the personal touch. You're probably going to need some one-on-one feedback, some advice, and some help reaching your songwriting goals. And that's what I want to help do for you. I want to help you write your best songs ever. And I want to help you learn the art, the craft, and the business of songwriting, of how to turn pro in your mind and in your behavior before you ever turn pro on paper, before you ever have the awards to hang on the wall. I want to give you the mindsets and the skills to earn that stuff. And so we'll dive into your questions and I'll give you honest answers. And I can help repair your song if it's already written but has a couple bugs and has some opportunities to get better. Or we can help prepare your song if you have an idea, a notion, a title. We can do your own private song title challenge if you want. If you want to get ready for a co-write, if you have a meeting coming up and you want to get your stuff locked down where it's the best it can be, I'm happy to help you do that as well. You can see my calendar, get all the details, and actually book a session at songwritingpro.com/coaching. That is songwritingpro.com/coaching. Now, if you're still not sure if a coaching session with me is the right thing for you, let's listen to what this climber had to say about their session.
The first time I met with Brent was an hour session, face-to-face on Skype. I was pretty excited to have the opportunity for some back and forth discussion about my songs, because up until then I had been pressing send on the computer and waiting for days for a written general critique. With the written critiques, I was finding that sometimes I was left trying to interpret them on my own and then comb through what I know to fix what I thought they were getting at. But Brent provided real-time interactive feedback based on a solid and deliberate method. It didn't feel random and definitely didn't feel like judgment. In the end, I went away with solution-based critique that made perfect sense to me. I remember being a little worried about wasting time in my session trying to think of every question that I might have so that I could make the very most of it. But once he dove in, and it's kind of a magical thing to witness, his brain just turns and churns until every nook and cranny of that song has been considered, and I just wasn't left with many questions at all. The best thing after my session was just being able to see a clear path ahead and feeling also like my own brain is clicking a whole bunch faster after trying to keep up with his crazy acrobatic ninja fighter type brain. So I highly recommend sessions with Brent.
Song Title Challenge.
All right, welcome to another Song Title Challenge where the question is, climbers, how would you write this one? This is a mini-sode every other Friday where climbers send in their song titles to info@daredevilproduction.com. And you put Song Title Challenge in the subject line, info@daredevilproduction.com, production is singular. And then I put that in the right folder. I spring it to Brent live on the podcast while we're recording. And we try to mimic what happens in the first 15 minutes of a professional songwrite, where you take the title and you try to legitimately find out if there's 5 or 6 different conceptual angles that you can cook up to the same title, because oftentimes the very first, most obvious path to go on your lyrics is a little too cliche. Sometimes it's the best, but a lot of times it's not. And after 4 or 5 shots at it over a small 15-minute period, you come up with something that's really, really amazing. And Brent will testify here that this is an amazing exercise to take your hook book and all that stuff that you haven't looked at for 3 years because it feels like old wilted lettuce and old ideas. You can now take this and put some new life into some old titles, right, Brent?
Hey, man. I've been doing it the last couple of days this week. Haven't gotten to it today yet, just starting to when we had to record. But yeah, man, it's been great for my writing. I've been seeing results from it. I've been writing a bunch of this, like 20-year-old titles and 10-year-old titles with co-writers because it breathes new life into them. So I highly recommend it.
Awesome. And this is, by the way, not a co-write in any way, shape, or form. It's just a fun, creative exercise that we highly, highly, highly suggest every songwriter does. You can keep all of what we use none of what we use. The only thing we do ask for in return is that you invite us to the number one party, right?
Amen to that. We love number one parties.
All right, so are you ready?
Never have been, never will be, and won't let it stop me.
All right, so this is from climber Ben Nicholas.
Hey, Ben.
And I believe his last name is kind of spelled like Jack Nicklaus, which is a golfer, but I might be wrong. And Ben's song title idea is Lights of Guidance. Lights of Guidance.
Lights of Guidance. All right, I'm just writing it down here so I can see it. Lights of Guidance. Okay, so this is an interesting language, so I'm a country hammer, so most things look like country nails to me. This doesn't look like a typical country nail to me, just because lights, you can have lights in country songs all the time, but guidance, that seems a little more sophisticated than the guy on the tractor type word, right? Especially for a title to go Lights of Guidance. And one thing I'm thinking of too is like, whoo, what is going to rhyme with guidance? That's one of the first thing I'm thinking of, like guidance, something beside us, something deciding, lights of, Joe Biden. I don't know. So that's one thing that makes you go, okay, little beads of sweat starting to pop up in my head already. Okay, so Lights of Guidance. Okay, what does this mean? So let the title write our song as much as we can, because right now this is the only clues that we have, because Ben's not in the room to tell us what he's thinking, so we have to tell him what we're thinking. So Lights of Guidance. Okay, guidance and light, they go together, right? Because you think a light, a spotlight, something to light your path along the way. It's a lighthouse. I think of a lighthouse kind of thing, where it's shining a light to guide you on your way. That makes sense, lights and guiding someone, go to the light,
Right.
So it makes me feel like it would make sense as more of a adult contemporary thing, maybe a CCM, contemporary Christian thing, something like that. It doesn't feel like a country thing to me because of the language, or it would be a really kind of outside the box country thing. It'd be on the edge more of maybe a Tim McGraw who can do some really progressive stuff, or someone like that. Guidance just doesn't feel like a country word to have in a title. So lights, it's also plural. This is more than one light. Maybe it's a song about how there have been different lights of guidance in your life to guide you on your way, to show you the way. So one could be your mama. One could be your wife. One could be that Sunday school teacher you had. One could be that football coach. That sort of thing, kind of giving shout outs to these people that have shown you the way, a good path to walk on in your life. It could be that. What if your first verse is a couple people and then the second verse is more personifying disappointment? When closed doors happen, that pointed me toward a window. The hurts and the heartaches, that sort of thing, showing light on maybe a way I shouldn't go. So it guides me away from some stuff. Or, your bliss, kind of following your bliss, the things that really set your heart on fire. That could be a light of guidance to go, I need to go this way because this really feels right. That sort of thing. So that's the first place I'm going, which feels like it'd be pretty heady. I think you can ground it by putting, your football coach, your first grade teacher, your mom, your dad, your grandparents in there as some lights of guidance. Or it could be a darker thing, like I need this. Like I need some lights of guidance because I'm in the dark and I don't know which way to go. Come on, shine your lights of guidance. I need some direction here. Could be almost a prayer of, God, I'm completely in the dark and I don't know where to go, blah, blah, blah. Send me your lights of guidance. Send me a ray of hope. You play off the light thing, lights of guidance, ray of hope, shine. I don't want to say light again, but shine, for me to know which way to go.
Shine brightly, something like that, yeah.
Yes, so I know which way to go, which could be the light of guidance, ray of hope, shine your so I know which way to go. And then, the trick is, do we rhyme guidance? Once we have our direction, we know what we're doing. Like, ooh, do we rhyme guidance, or do we have it like in the first line and the second to last line? So like, shine your light of guidance, send me a ray of hope, shine your da-da-da-da-da, so I know which way to go, because da-da-da-da-da, whatever. Shine your light of guidance on me here in the dark. So you can rhyme with dark instead of guidance. Could be a way to fudge on not having to rhyme that line, because guidance is going to be, could be pretty difficult.
You could also rhyme with guide or ants, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of that, you can get away with that. What if you were to take and you sort of set it up like it's going to be this big heady song, but it's actually the opposite, right? Like, be careful how you choose your lights of guidance, right?
Yeah, like cautionary tale.
The neon signs of a bar,
yeah,
right?
It's a Bud Light. It's a Bud Light, yeah.
Yeah, the lights of guidance could be a beer.
It's
yeah, I didn't
it's
even
a
think of
Bud
that.
Light. It's a neon light.
There's the red and blue lights, if you're not careful. What are some other ways that you could kind of twist that up and make it a fun party song that's younger and not so heady?
Ooh, that's tough because that title itself is so heady that it may just feel like a fish out of water. But it could be, Mom always prayed that God would send a light of guidance or whatever. Well, I think I just found it. It's a neon sign, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a neon light. It's a Bud Light. I might be a little misguided, but that's my light of guidance. I mean, that's kind of rhyming the same word with itself. But it could be a thing like that. Maybe you can ground it a little bit more with kind of what, Johnny, what you're saying, some of the lights of guidance were blue lights. It was those different things that you kind of learned the hard way in a very earthy kind of way. Like, yeah, it was some blue lights when I got pulled over because I was drinking and driving or I was doing something I shouldn't. And that kind of set me on a better course.
Right.
I needed that light of guidance. I needed those lights of guidance.
There you go.
So that could be a thing too. Maybe it's a love thing where you're relating her to a lighthouse. Mm-hmm. So instead of calling the song Lighthouse, it's like Lights of Guidance. It's like all these rocks that I don't think I'd be surviving without your lights of guidance. It's a little rhyme there.
That worked. That just happened.
Yeah.
That just happened.
So it could be that sort of thing about, you keep me off the rocks where I be crashing. So it's a positive love thing sung to somebody about how you're my lights of guidance. You're my ray of hope. So you can play off some of that stuff again. You're the something in the darkness, which could be cool in the third line because if you're my lights of guidance, you're my ray of hope, you're my something in the darkness. Darkness guidance got a little soft rhyme in the first and third lines. You're my da-da-da, oh, you show me which way to go. I'd be da-da-da, and I'd be blinded without your lights of guidance. I'd be lost and blinded without your lights of guidance. Blinded could be kind of a rhyme there.
Oh, there you go.
So that can be a positive love thing. So we've covered like prayers for guidance, love, that you do guide me. Silly, ridiculous, Bud Light, neon light is my light of guidance. Or then also some of these different lights of guidance on your way. It could be blue lights and mama and that porch light that was always on when you're out playing late and that lights of guidance. And did you make that to a bigger thing?
How about the light of guidance on the porch light where you're in high school and you start making out with the girl and then the light goes off? Right?
You're like, uh-oh.
Dad just said it's time to come in.
It's time to come in, son. Yeah.
Sometimes the lights of guidance, maybe they're not lights.
When they go
right?
out.
When they go out is when you know it's time to make a move.
Right.
You could twist it up that way.
So I think there's some challenges with this title to have it be the right kind of genre, just because it doesn't, of course, I don't know what you're thinking or what you have in mind for this, but if you brought it into a co-write with me, I'd be like, I'm not feeling this as a country thing, which is fine, because there are a lot of good, successful genres and great songs in other genres. And you just want to feel like a title in your genre. Could be a folky, could be a Christian, could be a pop kind of thing, or AC, adult contemporary.
Maybe the first verse is the dudes at church and it's something the preacher's saying about lights of guidance. And then you're like, I'm going to take his word. And you just go out and start raising hell everywhere that you possibly can. Headlights could be lights of guidance, right?
Yeah.
Like on your pickup truck or on your motorcycle, or flashlights, right? Like in the woods,
right?
Where you're sneaking away to go make out with your girl from a campground or something. Or I think if you kind of set it up, it might be like a really cool way, but it would matter on that first verse, like how you set it up, to where it's like some big heady thing the preacher says and nope, we're going the other way.
Yeah, or something mama said. The thing is, it's not country conversational. That phrase, lights of guidance, is not country conversational. That's in my
true.
mind.
Yeah.
So Johnny, I think you're on point. You would have to give it the context. Why would the singer say it this way? That's not how I'd say it. And so you'd have to build in that thing. Yeah, that's what mama always talked about. That's what the preacher talked about. And it could still go into the, hey, this is where I learned some lessons that actually they did become lights of guidance. It could be that thing too. I think of kind of bluegrassy kind of cautionary tales of where the preacher said this stuff, or mom said, lights of guidance, da-da-da-da-da. So that's kind of in the chorus, maybe where you're kind of quoting them and you're talking about, maybe this guy didn't listen, or I didn't listen. I didn't follow the lights of guidance. And then this is the result. This is the cautionary tale, the end result, the moral of the story. Could be something like that, because I could see it maybe going grassy, because some of that stuff is kind of archaic language on purpose. That's just the vernacular. You can get away with some of that, especially if you quote the preacher or quote Mama, talking about lights of guidance. That way it's not the singer's choice of words, but they're telling you that sort of thing. The words come back to his mind as he was laying in the ditch dying. Son, just follow them lights of guidance. Da-da-da-da-da. If you're looking for the truth, you'll find it. You know, if you're stumbling in the dark, feeling blinded, look up for those lights of guidance. Could be that kind of thing where it's like all kind of heady because he's driving down that road drunk, thinking about what his mama said, trying to get him to go follow the straight and narrow, and then he's in his ditch dying and he's looking for the light. You know, that's the whole thing.
Yeah. Or like if you took the whole chorus and you juxtaposed each line, right? So I remember when the preacher said, blah, 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 or Mama said this about the lights of guidance, and you'll find your way. And it's the red flickering light where I end my day. And this bush light is what I need to blah, 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 blah. It could be a bonfire. It could be those big spotlights, lights of guidance spotlight to the stage, calling an artist to the stage, you know, something like that maybe too. Could be interesting.
Yeah. There are lots of ways to go with it. And you just have to build that in depending on what genre it is to make sure that this wording is appropriate for your genre, or that you give enough context. Say if you're pitching it for a country thing, and I'm looking at it, and that's just the first thing I see, I'm thinking, oh, this probably isn't a thing for me. Like if I were an artist, a country artist, going, I don't know, that doesn't seem like a country song. So you could still write it great. That title could still be a little bit of a challenge to get it heard. Doesn't mean it couldn't be great, you know?
Before you wrap this up, do you think that if you really, really put the effort in to write the fire out of that song, could that be the one thing that's sort of that outlier because it's so well written and it's so different, and because it's not the norm, that could be the one thing that gets you your first cut maybe?
I mean, maybe so, because never say never, right? It's a little bit of a title to overcome. If you overcome it well enough, maybe the bug becomes a feature, meaning this thing that on his face is like, oh, that's not conversational, but you make it and you give it so much meaning, and there's not another title out there like that, then it could help it stand out if you write the dog out of it.
Yeah, you got to write the fire out of that.
So, yeah, I mean, I'll never say never, because that's way above my pay grade. But on its surface, the title is something, at least for a country thing, would be a title you kind of have to overcome. And if you overcome it well enough, then maybe it becomes like, wow, okay, that's different and really cool, because the context, everything you built around it was so cool, it made it awesome. Yeah,
if you choose to do country, you're either going to fall flat on your face with this just on the basis of the lack of conversationality, or it's going to be brilliant.
There is no middle ground. That's one of those like, oh, you better come with it.
Yeah.
And of course, that's true with any song. It's so competitive. But especially when you're kind of starting off going, yeah, I know, I'm starting off behind the 8-ball a little bit. But that's fine.
Right
That's
on.
the gig.
Well, if Ben wants to write this with you privately, what can he do?
Well, he probably doesn't want to now. But no, I do coach writing. I do private feedback and consulting, so you can ask me your questions about the art craft business of songwriting. I can strap on that pack and climb up that mountain with you during a coach write and help you write your song. I can help you repair your song, help you prepare your song. You can get all the details on that, see my schedule, and book an appointment at songwritingpro.com/coaching. That's songwritingpro.com/coaching. And I'm not the only coach that does that. One of the other coaches that we have on there, or a couple of them, Bill White, who's written comedy stuff, and I got a Joe Nichols cut with Bill. We have Steve Dean, who's had cuts by Alabama, and you're watching you for Rodney Atkins, huge hit, and Jen Schott, who just landed at least her second Tim McGraw cut on his upcoming record. Yeah, so we're proud of Jen.
So cool.
We interviewed her a while back, so we've had her on the climb. And at that point, she just had one Tim McGraw cut. Now she got two. And we're proud of her. And she also does coaching with us. And so you can ask her your questions as well. So that's all at songwritingpro.com/coaching.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of another killer song title challenge. Please send in as many titles as you like to info@daredevilproduction.com. and put song title challenge in the subject line so it gets into the right folder. And maybe we'll just make it happen on the air here. This podcast exists because we want you to win. So keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.
Song title challenge.